Alright, man, this is episode number 60 of the Cozy Corner of Cinema. This is being recorded on Friday, May 19th, 2023 at 8:06 p.m., and the chair is already squeaking. Yeah, man. So what a day it's been. What a beautiful day it was. The sun was out. There was a nice, cool chill in the air. People were outside walking and talking. The cats were inside, sleeping, hanging out, eating food, man. They were having a ball, man. They went out for a little bit, and now we're all here to rest, and I'm here to record this episode, man, just in the nick of time, because I knew I wasn't going to get an opportunity to tomorrow, and definitely not Sunday. Sunday's going to be pretty busy, but I hope you all have been doing well this week. I hope you've been keeping up on whatever creative endeavors that you have been wanting to keep up with, and if you haven't, or you haven't been doing as much as you had intended, well, then there's always today, there's always tomorrow, there's always an opportunity. As long as you're breathing, you still got time, man. Trust me. You know, you don't want to put it off, though. You don't want to be sitting around and talking about, hey, I'm gonna write this one day, I'm gonna direct this one day, I'm gonna, make the next big rock song, and I'm gonna, make this great painting, and then you're talking about like, oh, I'll do it one day, and then somebody asks, hey man, I thought you were gonna write that screenplay, or I thought you were gonna direct that film, man. What happened? And then you're just like, I got busy with life and stuff, man. It's like, well, man, we all got different opportunities, and we all have different schedules, but it's all about finding the time. Sorry, I'm doing something, so it might sound like I'm stepping away from the microphone. We all have different opportunities and different schedules, but it's all about finding the nuggets of time, man, that you got. You're at work and you got your lunch break, get off social media. It's just rotting your brain. Use that time to get your reading done or your writing done or whatever it is, man. Try to surround yourself with people who are as equally passionate about their creative art as you are with yours, man, because, you hang around people who just have no kind of creative passion, just drift through life, they're like drifters, man. They don't do anything, and then they wonder why, people, they talk about, oh man, this year is going by, this year's going by so fast, I've done nothing with it so far. It's like, well, brother, it's only going to get faster and faster, man. The older you get, the more you're aware of time and how limited we are with time. There was a quote a couple days ago from Martin Scorsese, and he was talking about, I'm not going to look up the quote, but paraphrase, and where he was talking about how when Akira Kurosawa was in his 80s, he was talking about how he had all these, he was just beginning to really get into, you know what? Let me actually find this quote, 'cause I swear to God, man, I'm going to try to say this, and I'm going to mess up the whole thing. But it was a very important quote, man. It was one that is important to... Here we go. Let's see. Kurosawa, when he got his Oscar, when George Lucas and Steven Spielberg gave it to him, he said, I'm only now beginning to see the possibility of what cinema could be, and it's too late. He said, I wish I could take a break for 8 weeks and make a film at the same time. The whole world is opened up to me, but it's too late. It's too late. I want to tell stories, and there's no more time. And you look at Scorsese, and you look at the legacy that he's going to leave behind, and his films that have undoubtedly changed the lives of countless people. We are so lucky and fortunate to be born at a time we get to experience masterpieces like Taxi Driver, like Raging Bull, like The Last Temptation of Christ. And you know what those three films have in common? They're all written by Paul Schrader, man. So we're going to talk about this first film today. Paul Schrader's brand new film, Master Gardener. I just saw it this afternoon, so I got a free press... What'd I say, pretty fresh? Oh, geez Louise, man. I got a pretty fresh perspective on it, and I thought it'd be worth talking about. I've mentioned before, Paul Schrader is one of my favorite writers. He's one of my favorite directors. Like I said before, he's written 3 just total masterpieces directed by Scorsese, Taxi Driver, The Last Temptation of Christ, and Raging Bull. And he also went on to write for Scorsese another really terrific film that is still underseen, I believe, which is Bringing Out the Dead from 1999, that apparently is getting a Blu-ray this year, although I have not heard any updates since. But if you haven't already seen that film, that is a terrific film with Nicolas Cage and Patricia Arquette. But he's also directed many a film as well. He's directed, let me get the list up here, actually. What immediately comes to mind for me is one of my favorite films, which is Blue Collar. But he also did Hardcore, American Gigolo, the remake of Cat People, which I've never seen, but I just got the 4K from that Scream Factory 4K sale. I grabbed that, the 4K Rollerball, and oh gosh, what was the third 4K I got? Oh, geez, I'm drawing a blank right now, man. What the hell did I get? That's gonna drive me nuts now. He also did, later on to do Light of Day, which I haven't seen, but I know has a Blu-ray from. Or no, wait, I'm sorry, that's Light Sleeper that has a Blu-ray from Indicator. His recent films have been interesting. I haven't seen all of his recent stuff. I think I'm talking about recent in the past probably 15 years or so. I think I've actually seen most of these except for I don't know what this is. Dark. I don't know what the hell this is, man. Oh, this is the. I think this is a re-edit of Dying of the Light, which was a film that he did in 2014 with Nicolas Cage and Anton Yelchin. I think was in that film. It's not a very good film, but I think that might be a re-edit or something like that. But he in 20 I guess listed here 2017, but I counted it for 2018. A film that I love that I've talked about before, First Reformed, which is I think his is my favorite of his directorial work since. It might be. I don't know, man. I haven't seen all of his work, but it might be my second favorite of his directed films. I was looking through the list here, and I'm like, yep. It's better than that. Better than that. Yeah, it's terrific, man. It's right behind Blue Collar for me. Wow, I didn't even realize that till now. But then he followed that up with the Card Counter in 2021, which I didn't rewatch for the 2021 episode because it's a film that I like. But it's not a film that I'd be interested in rewatching at some point, but it wasn't a film that was a priority to rewatch. I thought Oscar Isaac in that film gave a really terrific performance. He's this loner kind of card counter who is living in a motel outside of, I don't know if it was outside of Vegas or it was in Vegas, but he does these kind of low stakes kind of card games like blackjack, where he'll only go for like a certain amount. He really doesn't care about the money. It's really just we delve more into who he is as a person. He's a very organized person. And that's a film that I think it's got a lot of really outstanding things about it. I really liked a lot of the directing choices that Schrader did. I really liked whenever it would flash back to a different point in that character's life. It had this fisheye lens with this like heavy metal music playing to create a very disorienting feeling, and it achieved that very well. But ultimately, I think some of the actor directing in that I don't think is the best. I think Ty Sheridan is a terrific actor who's been in a lot of interesting films, but I don't think he was. I don't think his performance was very good in the film. It was okay, but I think it might be Paul Schrader's directing on that. And Tiffany Haddish, who I know primarily as a comedic actor, I thought she was just very miscast in the role. It's not that she gave a bad performance. It's just that it just felt like somebody else should have played that role. And even Willem Dafoe is not in the film a whole lot. I thought that it's an interesting film, and I think it is worth watching. Even though I watched the video that was talking about the card counting in the film, and they were pointing out some very obvious mistakes that the character makes that the film doesn't acknowledge. So if you're one of those guys who can't get past certain details like that, maybe you don't want to watch the film. But it's interesting, and I think it's important to bring that film up because when it comes to First Reformed, the Card Counter, and these films kind of feel like a mini trilogy in a way of these isolated loner characters who are really good at a certain thing, and their backstory and their past is really starting to catch up with them. In First Reformed, you had Ethan Hawke's character who has that troubled past, and he's taking care of this church, this First Reformed church, and he's getting it ready for this centennial event, but he comes to anyways, I talked about, if you want to hear me go more in depth on that film, I want to get to Master Gardener, but that made my top 10 favorite films of 2018, so check out that video. I think that was like number 2 or 3. I don't exactly remember. But then the Card Counter as well, which feels closer to this, and actually the poster for the Card Counter and the poster for Master Gardener are pretty similar. It's neither, I don't think either are very good posters, admittedly, but all 3 of them. Putting them side by side, all 3 of them are like up close shots of the main character's face, looking discerning with their trait behind them. In First Reformed, you have this field of fire, kind of on the poster. This internal kind of fire this character has. In the Card Counter poster, you have all these like spades and stuff, and these card symbols, and like is that a spade? I don't actually. Yeah, spade, a diamond, all that good stuff. To represent the character. And then in Master Gardener, which I will talk about now, because I have a bad tendency to ramble on. If you haven't noticed, if you listen to a couple episodes of this show, I tend to ramble on. But Master Gardener, all right, man. You got the poster here. You got Joel Edgerton. He's looking concerned. He's standing in a bunch of flowers, and you're going, all right, Master Gardener. Here we go. You got this guy, Narvel Roth, who was working for this lady, Norma Haverhill, I think. I don't know how to say her name. Played by Sigourney Weaver. And he's very great at what he does. He is a master gardener. He's writing in his journal, similar to First Reformed, and he's talking about different kinds of flowers that bloom at different periods of time. Certain flowers do this at this time. Certain, he's an expert at this. And Sigourney Weaver's character, the one where she goes to him, she says, "I got my grandniece here, Maya, played by Quintessa Swindell." I gotta look her up actually, because I don't know if I'm familiar with that actor. What have I seen her in? It looks like I have not seen her in anything. Yeah, she's been in a couple films I haven't seen. Black Adam and Voyagers, which I haven't seen in some TV as well. Anyway, so she's like, I want you to take her on as an apprentice, because I may not be here for, my future's uncertain, but I want you to take care of her. So at first, things are, we already know that he has kind of like, there's something kind of seedy about him, he takes off his shirt and we see, which, the trailer kind of gives a lot of this away, so I'm going to try to be a little vague with this, but basically he has a dark past. And him and Maya start to form something of a friendship, possibly into a relationship, but like all these characters, his past catches up to him, and Narvel has to confront that head on, realizing that he can't have a totally normal life. He's always going to have to be in the shadows at some point or another. And let me get a sip of this beverage right here. And the way the film is structured is very interesting, because it feels like what I feel like, is a bit of a detriment to the film. It feels like a couple different stories and a couple different films put into one, where you have this interesting relationship between Narvel and Maya. Narvel's an isolated character, and, you understand why. And she, is kind of comes from like a little bit of a bad background, but she's a good kid. She wants to do right, but she just, she has these crutches that, like these crutches in life, where she just kind of falls back into a lot of these. And Narvel sees the good in her, man. He's a good guy. He treats his workers well. They all seem to like him, but he's like, he's restrained. He's laid back. He's very almost monotone kind of talking man. And then Sigourney Weaver is kind of the opposite of that, where she's playing it more theatrically, man, where I think, a problem that I got with the film is what I was talking about before the card counter, is that I don't think that some of the actors in the film are directed superbly, man. I was scratching my head at exactly what was going on with Sigourney Weaver's performance, because I understand the contrast between you have her, who's playing a little bit bigger, and Joel Edgerton, who was playing it more restrained, more pulled back. But I don't think it meshed quite well. There's there's some good moments early on when it's just the two of them. It's just, Narvel and Norma, they're talking, they have kind of a relationship, like a professional and possibly, something more relationship going on. But then there's a sequence later on where it's the three of them at a dinner table, and it's just strange the way that it's played there. Her performance is played there. It seems like there's something missing. For a film that's taking its time with a lot of it, this is almost 2 hours, and to the film's credit, it's never boring. There's not a moment of this film where it's uninteresting. I think a big part of that is because Joel Edgerton's performance is very good, and also the camera work in the film is really solid as well. If you remember, like in, remember in First Reformed, it has all those great kind of camera shots where everything is very mannered. Everything is like centered frame, man, where you see like the church centered frame. And that film was like, what? I don't know what the aspect ratio that is, 4:3 or something like that. I've told you guys before, I don't know anything about aspect ratios or film formats, man. I don't know, I don't know anything about that kind of stuff. But here it's the same kind of thing. There's these great tracking shots down the center of this like kind of garden way, this like bushy area. The house is centered there, and it's interesting because a film that I saw earlier in the day, Monica, which was a terrific film as well. One of the things that I thought was really exceptional about that film is the framing almost being the complete opposite of this film, where events will happen outside of the frame that complement what's happening inside of the frame. So it's interesting to go back to to watch this film. And then, watch that film, then watch this film. There's no handheld shots in the film. Every sequence in here is on a tripod. If there's a tracking shot, it'll, pan over. even the even like little moments where somebody will walk just slightly into frame and the camera will tilt up a little bit. It all looks great, man. You feel a very spacious surrounding of it. A big problem I have with the film, besides the script just being a little too messy, a little too clunky, is the two things, man: the editing and the ADR. Man, I don't really notice a lot of like poor ADR, but good God, man, there's a couple times in this film I'm watching this on the giant screen, and the ADR is not even remotely close, man. There's one moment in particular I want you guys to keep an eye on this should you watch the film, where Narvel and one of the other characters, I don't know the actor's name. I think it might be this actor, Victoria Hill, who plays this character Isabel, if this is the right one. Yes, this is her. They're walking to the right of the screen, and they're both talking, but they're only saying a couple words to each other. And if you look, you can see that their mouths are. It's like they're having a full-on conversation, man. They're saying so much, but the dialogue is so little, and you're like, what the hell is going on with this ADR, man? And it happens a couple times, man. There's a flashback early on. We have an older character talking right at the screen, and it's as clear as day, man. There ain't no missing it, and you're going, what is going on with this, man? I mean, some of the technical parts you could forgive. You watch a film and, a character is talking on a phone and it's like they have to like manufacture the screen on the phone. Like that stuff you can look past. It's not, if it's going to take you out of the film, that's on you, man. But in a case like this, where the ADR is so poor, man, it took me right. The immersion of that is completely shattered, man. But with that said, I feel like the film wants to do a couple different things. It wants to have this personal relationship between Narvel and Maya, which I think works very well. Then you want to have this, Narvel kind of having to, live in the shadows almost away, kind of keep quiet at this garden place, which works really well. And then you have this. Felt like completely from a different movie, this revenge part of it in the third act that doesn't come out of nowhere, man, but it just goes right into something else, man. It's what I was talking about before, where when I was talking about Texas, and that's based on a true story, so that's a different situation. But you have a mostly restrained film, and then you have this just ridiculous third act. In that film, I talk about the ridiculous car chase, and in here, it's this ridiculous sequence that is so poorly edited, and it goes by so quickly and awkwardly, man. It's sort of like they set up all this time for these characters, and then there's just an awkward payoff, man. I can't quite explain it. I will say, though, that I really liked the finale of the film, man. I thought the last, probably 10 or 15 minutes or so were very good. The film kind of comes full circle, and it's interesting because what I was saying is that there's so many different parts of the film that work really well. I like the stuff where Maya is like somewhat of a drug addict, and Narvel's trying to help her out, but then they rush that too much, and then they try to form a bit of a relationship that I don't think totally works. Like I was saying before, it's a film that takes its time, but because it's trying to do so much, it doesn't have the proper time to, really kind of emotionally fulfill you with a lot of these parts of the film. It feels like they should have just been a little more focused on some of this, and some of the dialogue, man, I tell you, Schrader's one of the greatest screenwriters, I think, ever. But some of this dialogue here, man, I don't know, man. There's one sequence that I thought was going to be a dream sequence because I'm just like, okay, this is very stilted and awkward dialogue, but then it's not a dream sequence, and it just didn't work for me. And there's a part early on, man, where he's talking to her about something, and he's talking about he makes comparisons to people getting drunk and posting sexist memes, and I'm like, what are you talking about, man? What is going on, man? But with that said, and I only want to talk about this because I'm such a Paul Schrader fan, and he's just so talented, man, and I just love what he does. But man, I do think this is a good film. I think Joel Edgerton, what Paul Schrader is really good at is that you have Ethan Hawke, Oscar Isaac, and Joel Edgerton, three terrific actors doing performances of this isolated, lonely kind of guy, but they're playing it in different ways where they're not interchangeable. They feel very much like the films, they feel very much like different people still, where Oscar Isaac's character and the card counter feels way more just disconnected from reality. Ethan Hawke has this kind of this fire inside him, this menace that wants to be released, that he has to have keep restrained because of his past. And here you have Narvel, who's a little more down to earth, a little more sociable, but still quiet, keeps to himself. And I think Paul Schrader's really good at that. And what I say with the card counter with the side characters is that in First Reformed, I think all the performances in that are top notch. Amanda Seyfried, Cedric the Entertainer, the boyfriend character, who I apologize, I don't know the actor's name, but he was great, and the woman in that film, I apologize, I don't have the IMDb up right now, but I think it's just strange because I actually think that all of the performances across the board in that are great, and I'm only comparing this for the sake of that this feels like a mini trilogy in a way. I don't think it's right to compare, films, and I don't think it's right to say like, oh, your last film was better, last film was better. That's a complete redundant, term, because even though I'm not the biggest fan, I'm not crazy about this or the card counter, I think Paul Schrader still has he still such an exceptional writer-director that there are moments and there are parts in this film that really do stand out and show that he hasn't lost it. I just don't think either of the films totally work for me, but I do think both are good and should be seen, especially if you are a Paul Schrader fan, because I like what he's doing here, and they're very interesting films in of themselves. Master Gardener. I thought it was a good film. It's not one that I intend to revisit. But I do think it is worth watching, and should you be interested, I think this is one that a lot of people might are going to get a fair amount of, depending on how invested you are in the characters in this, because if you're not, then you're obviously not going to be as invested into the film itself. But yeah, give it a watch, man. I think it's a cool film. Yeah, it's Master Gardener. It's great this year, man. We got a new Paul Schrader film. We got Scorsese's new film. I don't know, man, is it premiering at Cannes this weekend? I can't remember if I read that it was or wasn't, because it's going on right now, and I've been hearing about some early buzz on some films. Some films doing, pretty good, some films doing not so good. That new Johnny Depp film apparently is getting pretty good reviews, so I'm going to have to keep an eye on that. And unfortunately, I've been hearing that the new Indiana Jones has not been getting the best reviews, man, which is a shame because, I'm still going to see it. I'm not particularly the biggest, I'm more interested in watching that as a James Mangold film rather than an Indiana Jones film. I like all four of those films fine. They've never quite been the films that I've been obsessive over, but they're fun action films. I think all four of them are good. They're all enjoyable films. So that'll have to be seen when time comes. But yeah, I don't remember if Killers of the Flower Moon is premiering this weekend or not. But it's coming out in October, which is great, And I think I read that Scorsese already has something else lined up after this, so it's wild, man. God bless him. And Clint Eastwood's got one more film in him. The something Jury, I forgot what the hell it's called, with I think Nicholas Hoult and Toni Collette are in that, to my knowledge. I mean, Eastwood's last couple of films have been they've been hit or miss, but I think it's still cool that we're getting work from him. I think it's. When you look at his filmography as a whole, you can kind of look at, even though he's had great film since, I believe, a couple, I think Unforgiven is a good way to kind of end really the prime legacy of Eastwood. And like I say, he's done great films since. I think A Perfect World was after that. That's a criminally underseen film with Kevin Costner and Laura Dern, and Eastwood's in that film as well, acting. If you haven't seen that film, that's one that's really exceptional. But of his recent work, I really enjoyed Richard Jewell. I thought that was very good. Although I really don't like whoever his cinematographer is. This terrible gray palette that he's been using in his couple of recent films. I think it looks terrible. But Sully was one that I didn't watch till a couple months ago. I for whatever reason I just didn't see it theatrically, and I was really surprised how invested I was in the story, man. American Sniper I like a lot as well. That one got a lot of attention at the Academy Awards. I thought Bradley Cooper just gave such a terrific and charismatic performance in that film as this guy Chris Kyle, and kind of the inner turmoil that he's going through, coming back home from Afghanistan and stuff. Some of his other recent films have been hit or miss. I heard some pretty rough things about the 1517 to Paris. I have that on Blu-ray in the other room. I just haven't watched it yet. I'm trying to think, what else was his recent films? in terms of like the past like 10, 15 years. Changeling was pretty good. That was from 2008. Um, I guess, I mean, Million Dollar Baby was one that got a lot of talk, but, that's a film that has really good performances in it, but my God, man, some of that writing, man, there's some rough parts of that film. It's very black and white characters. There's either characters that are good or characters that are bad. There is no in between. You don't like the family members of Hilary Swank's character, and in a very kind of shallow way, I think the script kind of does those characters. But it is an interesting film as well. I think Morgan Freeman really shines in that film. Of course, they work together in Unforgiven as well. And his God, I don't know why I was trying to think of one of his films. I was getting Bloodwork mixed up with. Oh, he did direct Mystic River. Wait a minute. My gosh. Okay, and here's the crazy thing, man. I got Bloodwork and Mystic River mixed up for whatever reason, and then I remembered just now. This is crazy. You guys listen to this. You just heard this first account. And at that moment, I remembered, oh yeah, he directed Mystic River as well. With Sean Penn, Tim Robbins. Who was the other big actor in that? Kevin Bacon. That's a great film as well. That was one that I remember I would put off for a while because I heard some not so great things about it. But in terms of films from Unforgiven, Unforgiven, I think is just a brilliant film. It's brilliant what he does. He's known for a certain part of his career being this great Western star in the Sergio Leone films and making and being in his own exceptional American films as well. I think High Plains Drifter is a masterpiece, and he's done other very interesting films. Outlaw Josie Wales is great. Big fan of that film. Joe Kidd is good. Pale Rider is great. But then he takes Unforgiven kind of as a more character-driven Western where you have a guy who's kind of showing that this isn't a long life you can have, man. The violence does not lead to, the real scars are internally. The violence that you put onto others, you have to live with that. And that's why, you have Eastwood in that film who's an older man having to live with the man he's been. And unfortunately, it has to kind of bring that back to the forefront to end the violence again. It's like violence negating violence, as well as Gene Hackman in that film. Terrific performance, And also, what was that film? Absolute Power, I think. Oh, I also recently watched In the Line of Duty. Or is it In the Line of Fire or In the Line of Duty? One of them is a martial arts film. One of them is a Clint Eastwood film, which was very good. But Absolute Power as well. That film is pretty good. It's not great. It's a little ridiculous at times. But it's just great to see Eastwood and Hackman working together again. But moral of the story is that if you haven't seen Unforgiven, that's a mandatory Western. If someone was like, hey, I need a list of mandatory Westerns that you gotta see, that'd be on there. The Wild Bunch, The Searchers, all these just masterpieces, One regret I had about the 1956 episodes, I do wish I put The Searchers a little bit higher. I had it at number 4. It really should have been probably number 3, I think. It's a film that is so brilliant, it's so brilliantly directed. And I think, unfortunately, it's kind of had this stigma of when people criticize John Wayne, and if you're not a fan of his work or him as a person, that's completely, the eye of the beholder. But I think people look at that character, a character who is intentionally flawed and is intentionally hateful in a way where he has had this kind of, he's at this point in his life where he fought in a pointless war and doesn't know what to do with himself. So it's a character like that who has gray morals, but that's what makes his character so interesting. But I've heard some criticism. People talk about him as like a person and as an actor. They point to that film. I don't think that film's a very good example of that. I mean, if you want to criticize him or the Western genre, whatever, that's your prerogative. That's your right. I think some criticism might be valid, some not so much. But that's a whole other conversation right there, man. But yeah, well, guys, I had these other films I got to talk about, and I just didn't get to them, man. Gosh, last week I was going to talk about Natural Enemies, and then I'm like, I'm going to talk about Natural Enemies again. And I didn't talk about it. But anyways, guys, alright. Well, the sun is officially set. The cat is snoozing, looking out into the darkness, man. I got some cold beverages in the fridge. I'm going to go watch some films, man. You guys, you have a fantastic week, a fantastic weekend. We're getting up to the halfway point of the year. So when we get to that point, I want you to think to yourself, have I been enjoying myself this far in the year? And if you have, fantastic, man. Let's keep it going. Let's get that Friday mentality in 7 days a week. And if you haven't, then it's time for you to be alone with your thoughts, man, and think about what you want to do with your time going forward. It's your life, man. You got to live with it every day, so you might as well take control of it while you still can. Alright, guys, thank you so much for listening up to this point, and you guys have a fantastic day or a fantastic night, whenever you're listening to this. That's all I got. Bye.